People always ask me how I built an empire by 25, but no one ever asks who helped me believe I could. My name is Cole Hartman, and at 25, I was the youngest billionaire in the country. On paper, I had everything. A billion-dollar tech firm, 40 under 40 headlines, 4 homes in 4 countries, and 100 people who answered to me before lunch. But behind the numbers, behind the Forbes covers and keynote stages, I was starving. Not for money, not even for power, but for something much harder to earn: peace. I grew up in foster care. My mother died when I was 6. I never knew my father. Bounced from house to house until I aged out. I learned early, if you want to be seen, you better build something worth staring at. So I did. My first startup was a homework app I coded on stolen Wi-Fi in a group home. Sold it for $500,000 at 17. I didn't celebrate. I invested it. Built another app, then a platform, then an ecosystem, then a company so powerful that the people who once ignored me started writing books about how I did it. But they never asked why. Because no one wants to know what loneliness looks like when it wears a suit. By 25, I had everything I thought I wanted, and nothing I needed. That's when I bought the house. Not a mansion, not a skyscraper, a simple old estate with ivy-choked walls and creaking wood floors just outside San Francisco. A place where no one called me Mr. Hartman, and the silence didn't feel like punishment. And that's when I saw her. She was trimming roses on the property next door. Silver hair pulled tight in a braid, wide hat, tall boots. She had this way of moving, slow, deliberate, like time was something she'd already tamed. I didn't know it yet, but that woman was about to ruin and rebuild everything I thought I knew about love. Her name was Eleanor Gray.
The first time I spoke to Eleanor, I was barefoot. I'd just gotten back from a meeting in Palo Alto, stripped off my shoes and walked outside with a glass of scotch I didn't want. I saw her through the hedge, arms deep in a rosebush, pruning like a surgeon. Her hands moved with this old confidence, like she'd been doing it for decades. Like she didn't just know the roses, she remembered them when they were seedlings. Her dog was the one who made the introduction. A scruffy little thing, half terrier, half question mark, wiggled through the fence and ran straight toward me, barking like he owned the joint. I crouched down, held out my hand. "Hey, buddy," I said. "Where'd you escape from?" That's when I heard her voice for the first time. "Walter doesn't escape," she said. "He explores." I turned, and there she was, standing straight as a pine, face shaded under a wide straw hat, holding a pair of rusted clippers like they were an extension of her hand. "I'm Eleanor," she said. I told her my name. She didn't blink, didn't raise a brow, just gave me a slight nod. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she whistled, and Walter trotted back through the hedge like a soldier returning to base. Before she turned to go, she said something I didn't expect. "You look like someone who forgot how to breathe." And then she was gone. Just like that. No handshake, no small talk, no fanfare. But that sentence, those 10 words, they stuck to me like wet paint. "You look like someone who forgot how to breathe." I didn't know it yet, but Eleanor Gray had just diagnosed me better than any therapist ever had.
3 days passed before I saw her again. I was outside, walking the edge of my property line, pretending not to look toward hers, when Walter popped out of the hedge like a secret agent on patrol. This time, he carried something in his mouth, A red silk glove. I followed him back through the bushes and onto Eleanor's property for the first time. I didn't even knock. She was there, of course, sitting on the porch, a chipped porcelain teacup in hand, eyes scanning the garden like a general surveying troops. "Did he steal that?" I asked, holding up the glove. She didn't look up. "He borrows things for attention." I handed it to her. She patted the seat next to her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I sat. She poured me tea. Didn't ask if I wanted any, just poured it. The kind of confidence only old women and royalty possess. The silence was thick but not uncomfortable. The wind moved through the trees in lazy sweeps. There was no rush, no agenda. Then she asked, "What do you do?" I laughed, more bitter than amused. "Everyone usually starts with that." "She didn't," she said. "But you want to tell me, don't you?" I looked down at my cup, steam curled like a question mark. "I build things. Apps, systems, companies." She sipped her tea. "No," she said. "You build walls." That hit me in the gut. I wanted to leave, but I didn't. We sat for hours, talking about nothing, everything. Music, childhood, her sister who passed away, my fear of dying alone. At one point, she looked at me and said, "People think growing old is about aches and pills and forgetting names. But the truth is, it's about learning what matters and what never did." That was the first day I didn't check my phone for 6 hours, and I didn't miss it. Not even a little. It became a ritual. I'd show up around 4, sometimes with fresh bread, sometimes with nothing. But I always came. Eleanor never called it visiting. She called it showing up. "You're here," she'd say. "That's enough." We sat on that porch nearly every afternoon, sometimes in silence, sometimes in stories. She didn't speak to fill the air. She spoke when it mattered. That alone made her different from everyone I knew. I told her things I hadn't told anyone, about my first panic attack at 19, right before my company's first funding pitch, how I threw up in the bathroom and still walked out with a smile. She just nodded and said, "Ah, you've met your ghost." That was her term, your ghost, the thing that haunts you, quietly, daily. Not loud, not monstrous, just present. I asked her what her ghost was. She didn't answer for a full minute. Then she said, "A name I can't remember, a face I can't forget." I didn't ask what she meant. Somehow, I knew I shouldn't. Eleanor started teaching me chess. She beat me the first 6 games. Didn't gloat once, just moved her pieces with a poet's patience. She played piano too. Badly, according to her. Beautifully, according to me. One day, she asked if I'd like to try. I sat down. My fingers hesitated. "I haven't played since I was a kid," I admitted. "Then your fingers are overdue," she said. I played. Something simple, broken, honest. When I finished, she clapped once. Not sarcastic, sincere. That, she said, sounded like breathing. It wasn't romance yet, not even close, but it was something far rarer, presence. And in that quiet, steady presence, I felt myself begin to return. I didn't mean to fall in love with her. It didn't happen like in the movies. There was no dramatic moment, no swelling music, no sudden realization. It was slower, quieter, like waking up and realizing you've been warm all night because someone else pulled the blanket over you. I'd find myself watching her hands more than I should, the way they moved through teacups, piano keys, pages of old books, the way they trembled sometimes, just a little, like they knew time was watching. I noticed the tiny scar on her chin when she laughed, the way she hummed without realizing it when she was deep in thought. It wasn't lust. It wasn't infatuation. It was gravity, pulling me toward her in a way that made no sense on paper and every kind of sense in my chest. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because I didn't want to ruin it. She talked often about how people mistake attention for affection, that loving someone isn't about touching them, it's about noticing them. And God, I noticed everything. One afternoon, I told her she made me feel 14 again. She raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a personal problem. We laughed, but I meant it. Because at 14, I wanted to be seen. At 25, I was seen by everyone and known by no one, except her. She didn't say she loved me. She didn't have to. One evening as I was leaving, she touched my wrist and said, "Be gentle with your heart. It's younger than you think." And that night, I stood in my kitchen, staring out the window at her porch light, still on, and I let myself whisper it, just once, to the silence. "I love you." No answer, just my reflection in the glass. But I didn't need an answer yet. I just needed the light to stay on. It was bound to happen. I just didn't think it would hurt like that. A blurry photo, one afternoon. Me handing Eleanor a mug of tea on her porch. Her hand brushing mine. Walter asleep at our feet. It hit the internet like blood in water. Tech Wonder Boy's secret mistress. Billionaire's bizarre love life. Age gap or gold digging. I didn't even know it had gone viral until my COO called me at 6 a.m. "This is not going away," she said. "We need to respond." I told her there was nothing to respond to. But the world doesn't wait for nuance. It wants spectacle, scandal, proof of weakness. And Eleanor became target practice. They dug into her past, questioned her finances, even mocked her late husband. Comment sections filled with venom. "She's using him. He's mentally unstable. This is elder abuse in reverse." For a while, I tried to shield her. I blocked reporters, increased security, stayed inside. But she refused to hide. She stood on her porch the next day, pruning her roses like nothing had changed. "They can't take my peace," she said. "Not unless I give it to them." That day, I canceled a tech summit keynote. Instead, I called a press conference. People said it was career suicide. I stood on stage, faced the cameras, and said 3 sentences. "You don't have to understand our love. You just have to accept it exists. And if that costs you your respect, so be it." Then I left. No questions.
Eleanor watched the stream from her living room. When I came over that night, she opened the door, looked me straight in the eye, and whispered, "You brave, foolish boy," and kissed me on the mouth. The world exploded, but for once, I didn't care. Because for the first time, I wasn't living for them.
The kiss changed everything. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. We stopped pretending. No more dancing around it. No more hedging our words with humor. We were together, quietly, honestly, unapologetically, for about a week. Then, the phone rang. It was a board member, a friend, someone who'd supported me from day one. "Look," he said, "I don't care what you do in your private life, but your image is bleeding. Our stock dropped 6 points in 2 days." That's when I realized something I should have known long ago. The world doesn't care who makes you happy. It only cares if you're marketable while you're smiling. I didn't tell Eleanor about the call, but she knew. She always knew. One morning, she handed me a small box. Inside was a key. "To the gate," she said, "in case you ever need to close it behind you." I looked at her. "Are you ending this?" She smiled, soft, tired. "I'm freeing you." I shook my head. "I don't want to be free." "That's the part that worries me," she whispered. She asked me to take a few days, think, really think. So I did. I went to a hotel, turned off my phone, walked the coastline. And all I could think about was her laugh, her porch light, the way she said "Walter" like it was a prayer. When I returned, she was in the garden. Didn't say a word when she saw me. Just opened the gate. I walked in, held her face in my hands, and I said, "I don't care what it costs. I choose you." She closed her eyes, exhaled. "You're gonna lose everything. Then I'll rebuild it with you at the center." And she cried. Real, messy, shaking tears. Not because she didn't believe me, but because, for the first time, she did. It happened on a Tuesday. We were making breakfast. Well, I was. Eleanor was sitting at the counter, judging my scrambled eggs like a Michelin critic. Then she dropped her fork and didn't reach for it. Her hand just hung there, trembling. I rushed around the island. "Are you okay?" She looked at me with eyes I'd never seen before, afraid, distant. Then she whispered, "Not today." The next few hours were a blur. Doctors, tests, machines. I thought the world would end with fire, but it came with paper. ALS. 3 letters. A slow death sentence. She'd known for weeks, maybe longer. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to be pitied. She said, "I wanted to be yours, not your burden." I told her she was never a burden, that I'd carry her if I had to. She smiled at that. A real one, but smaller than before. The next day she moved in. I set up a piano in the living room. She said her hands might not obey much longer, but I told her that wasn't the point. The point was that she was still here. So every day we played something.
even if it was just one note, one broken chord. She started writing letters, too. Said they weren't for me. Said they were for her peace. But I saw her seal one with tears. Her body changed fast. By month's end, she needed help dressing. By the next, she couldn't hold a teacup. I told the world I was stepping away. From the company, from the cameras, from everything. They called it a meltdown. I called it living. I spent the rest of her strength like it was borrowed time. And even though her body was giving out, her mind never left. Not once. And that, somehow, made it both better and harder. Because I knew she'd be fully present right up until the moment she couldn't be. It was late. Rain tapping the windows. Eleanor was too tired to speak, but not to listen. She motioned for me to bring the box, a small wooden one she kept beneath her bed. Inside were a few photos, a hospital bracelet, a birth certificate, one name, one date. She pointed to it. "My son," she mouthed. I stared at the paper. Born in 1984. Placed into the system 2 years later after a fire destroyed everything she had. She'd searched for him. For decades. No answers. No closure. Until me. She told me, slowly, with effort, that the first time I knocked on her gate, her heart nearly stopped, because something about my eyes reminded her of his. That's why she let me in. That's why she kept letting me in. She thought, no, hoped, I might be him. I couldn't breathe. "I'm not," I said, quietly. She nodded. "I know." She'd already sent for the test. DNA. Confirmation. She'd known for weeks. But for a moment, she whispered, I got to believe he found his way back. We sat in silence.
Two people with holes in their history, trying to make a whole. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I didn't find my son, but I found someone who let me be a mother again." I broke. Right there beside her bed, holding her hand, I cried harder than I had in 20 years. Not for her, for me. Because I didn't lose a lover. I gained the home I never knew I was missing. And she gave it to me. Freely, fiercely. Finally. Eleanor passed on a Sunday. The air was still, the light was soft, and the world, just for a moment, felt kind. She died holding my hand, eyes open, clear, present. No fear, no regret. Just a quiet exhale and the faintest smile, as if to say, I'm ready. I didn't speak at the funeral. She asked me not to. She wanted no eulogies, no fanfare, just music. So I played 3 notes over and over, the first song she ever taught me. People cried, people whispered, but I just played. Then I vanished. No press, no final statements. I deleted my accounts, sold my shares, and walked away from the empire I built. For a year, I didn't speak to anyone who wanted something from me. I drove across the country in her car, stayed in motels, wrote letters I never sent, and watched sunsets she would have loved. Everywhere I went, I asked the same question: what does it mean to live now that she's not here? And slowly, gently, the answer came. You don't live after someone like Eleanor, you live because of them. So I came back. Not to the stage, not to the spotlight, but to a different house, a smaller one, with vines and a piano. I opened a nonprofit in her name for kids aging out of foster care, the ones like me, the ones she never stopped believing in. And every night before I sleep, I whisper 3 words. Not, I love you, not, I miss you, just, thank you, Eleanor. Because people always ask how I built an empire by 25, but no one ever asks who helped me believe I could. Now they'll know.
Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you're already feeling hooked, don't wait. Hit that subscribe button right now. I've got another beautiful story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.